Welcome everyone to the January 2025 Walk Massachusetts Network meeting, and this is our kickoff for the year. So I'm proud to turn it over to our speaker, Ben Crowther from America Walks. Ben, all you.
Hey, thanks, Brendan. Hello, everyone. Great to see you all. Some familiar faces, a lot of new faces. I have some Massachusetts credentials of my own. I'm Roslindale resident. I grew up out west in South Hadley. Went to UMass, so I think the majority of my life has been spent in Massachusetts with a few other sojourns elsewhere. So I'm here today talk a little bit about the organization I work for, America Walks, where I'm the policy director. I want to share some of the work we're doing at the national level and some resources that may be of interest to you all. America Walks really works closely with lots of local organizations across the country. So some of those resources are, directed towards advocates like you to use, both in your communities and in your advocacy. So I have a little presentation. I try and find that slides, help people, focus sometimes. But this is not a formal presentation. So if you have questions during the middle of it, or something you're thinking about that you want to say, just interrupt me, and we'll take that. I'll take that in stride there. So let me go ahead. I'm going to share just a little bit and get things going here. Um, Hold on one second. I think Zoom has changed a few things for me here. How does that look? We all see everything? Cool. I'm seeing the thumbs up from Brandon. Awesome. Yeah, so America Walks. Let me tell you a little bit about us. We've been around since 1995, acting as sort of let's say, pseudo umbrella organization at the national level for the walking movement. We don't have any, formal affiliation or chapters. Like we have no formal relationship with groups like Walk Massachusetts or Walk Springfield, but we are in kind of communication and oftentimes working together on different issues at the national level. We have, we started in 1995 as an all-volunteer organization, recognizing that there is this gap at the national level in terms of walking advocacy. I believe we became staffed sometime in the mid 20 teens. And now we're a staff of 8 working on a number of different programs and advocacy campaigns. But our 2 primary goals, you see here what we do, is really supporting local advocacy for walkable, accessible, and equitable places. And we do that sort of twofold. We have some resources of our own that we can share. But we really believe that you all doing the work on the ground are some of the best resources that exist out there in the world for walking advocacy. And so what we also try and do, and you'll see this through a number of our different programs and advocacy campaigns, is connect different groups from across the country that are doing this type of work so that they have the opportunity to learn from each other. We're also a voice at the national level for walkability. That largely falls into 2 big buckets around sort of communications and messaging. Where when there are things like reforms for safer vehicles for pedestrians that pop up, we're talking to national media outlets about why those are necessary. And we're also talking to the federal government, members of Congress, staff at USDOT, and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, about these issues as well. So there are now 8 of us on staff. Here's who we are. We're spread out across the country. Um, our largest concentration of folks is actually in Little Rock, Arkansas. So that's the de facto America Walks headquarters these days, with a whole staff total of 2. Um, but we have really really great staff that runs our campaigns and programs. And that's sort of where we're divided up into. We have a bucket of work that's our programs. These are annually recurring activities. We do it every year. It's usually around the same sort of activity. I'll talk a bit about those 3 that I have on the board here. The Walking College, our community change grants, and educational webinars. And then we also have our advocacy campaigns. And there's some opportunities for you all if you're interested to get involved in these campaigns. These sort of change year by year based on what's pressing in the world of walking advocacy. And right now we're focusing primarily on our communities over highways campaigns. That's valuing infrastructure for walking, biking, public transit, overfunding highway infrastructure. We have our Week Without Driving campaign or challenge that really, I'll talk a bit about it more in depth later on, but really was really successful in mobilizing people across all 50 states this last year to think about how they move throughout their communities without a car. And we also have our Safer Vehicles for Pedestrians campaign that's working on reform and regulation to make vehicle design and technology less deadly for people outside of cars. So I'll cover our programs first. And like I said, if you have any questions about these, please feel free to speak up, chime in the chat. Speaking of is probably easier, right? The chat's a little difficult to see in the in presenter mode, and we can pause, and I'd be happy to answer questions. So the first program I wanted to talk about is our annual walking college. And you might think, what is a walking college? In this case, it doesn't actually apply to universities or collegiate systems, but rather it's a 5-month program that takes in a cohort of advocates who apply, usually in sort of the early or mid-level of their advocacy trajectory, to help them improve their skills as they're advocating for more walkable communities. It's been a really successful program, and we've been running it in different states and a national walking college as well. We don't have a Massachusetts specific walking college. If you're interested in applying, this would be a pitch for you all to apply to the National Walking College. And as part of the curriculum, there's a lot of the basics, thinking about what sort of, state and local policies, promote walking, promote walkable communities, promote walkable designs. And there's a component on, advocacy. How do you, dream up and operate an advocacy campaign to change something in your community, whether that's something small scale, like redesigning a part of a street, or advocating for, an increased safe routes to schools program, something like that. To tackling, I think some of our previous Walking College fellows have actually worked on their jurisdiction zoning codes, to think about how they can change the what's built in their environment so that things are more walkable. And yeah, so that program, we run that every year. Sorry, I was just checking the chat to make sure that wasn't a question in there. Um, we run that every year with the idea that anyone who graduates from that program at the end of 5 months um, has leaves with a plan that they can implement and bring back to their own community to work on. Last year we started to accept cohorts of people from specific places, recognizing that being an advocate alone in your community can sometimes be disheartening and a little bit lonely. So we encourage, folks to apply as a group. So if there's you and some of your friends out there that want to apply for the Walking College, highly encourage that. I believe it's about a commitment of 3 to 5 hours a week or so, and applications opening soon. They'll be opening in the month of February for our program that will start in April. So I'll pause there just to see if anyone has any questions about the Walking College I can answer. I have a bunch of links that I'll put in the chat at the end of all this.
Hey Ben, who like is it just staff from America Walks that are the leaders of, who shares the information, who leads the program?
Yeah, that's my colleague Emily. Emily Barr leads the program and leads the curriculum. We draw a lot on the different expertise of all of our different staff members. So, I get tapped in for some of the policy and advocacy stuff. My colleague Nicole is a former um, public health official uh, from Pennsylvania, so she does a lot, on talking about walking and public health in the Walking College. And we draw on some outside speakers as well. I don't know if anyone follows Jonathan Stalls from he has his own consulting firm as well, but he has the Instagram account Pedestrian Dignity, where he documents a lot of his walking experiences. He's walked across the United States, I think, several times. We also have folks like him drop into outside speakers. And part of the great part about the program is we also do have mentors too. And these are usually former Walking College fellows who work with people in the program to help them, develop the plan that they can take home. So there's a lot of support that comes with joining the Walking College.
Hey, Ben, there's a question in the chat. Where is the application itself on the website? I see how to apply the section, but there does not seem to be an application there yet.
Yep, that will be live in February. We'll be putting that up there when the application opens. I can see if I can dig up a previous example of one once I jump off the screen share part. But it's not certainly not an application to college. You're not writing a full essay and things like that. It's a pretty straightforward application.
Great.
If other questions pop up, we can return to that. I'm going to jump ahead to another one of our programs where the applications are actually open now. And I can share this link at the end too. Do note that the timing is a little tight, closing on Friday, January 17th. But this is the second program that we run recurrently, primarily sponsored from the Center for Disease Control, with a little bit of support from General Motors as well. And these are our community change grants. What these are, is a small chunk of change. In this case, I believe this year it's $2,000 to further a community activity based around walking. Um, what does that entail? We've had a lot of great things that people have done in the past. Um, you know, some folks have used that money previously to create a programmed walk to their library based around reading. Other folks have used this to start a bike bus, you know, for children to get to school on bike um, altogether, you know, with that sort of critical mass. There's been a few examples in Massachusetts, I think, around the harbor, um, a community change grant from several years ago was involved in getting signage and wayfinding up for a walk around the waterfront. Um, so the idea with with this $2,000, you know, is to be able to go out and do something that's you know, programming on the smaller scale, but something that you can build on um, with future work. So we have those applications are open now. That one is up on our website, and it's a pretty straightforward application. So if you are interested in applying, uh, don't worry too much about that January 17th deadline. It is something that if you learn about it today, you could put together an application in 2 days.
That's great to know. I put the link. I found your Harbor Walk example on the website, a link to that if people want to learn more about that. And Judy actually put in the chat, the city of Lawrence won this grant and used the funds to print and distribute Safe Routes to School student route maps for the entire school system. So another.
Yeah, it's been a really awesome and flexible program, you know, that we see really a ton of interest in, and people can get really creative with it as well. You know, we've seen a few. You know, I think there's also a few you know, temporary demonstration projects that people have even done in their communities. You know, with that money to change street design for, you know, a short period of time.
Great. Betsy, is this one of the things that Walk Bike Springfield took advantage of to look at walk audits along Roosevelt?
Well, um, I was just typing into the chat that yes, we received this grant the year that there was special money to get money for projects in Massachusetts, thanks to the Safe Streets Alliance partnership with America Walks, where we did the series of walk audits and community outreach related to a 3.5 mile stretch of one of our major arterials. Yes.
Great.
I'll pop to the next part of our sort of the final component of our program. Programs you know, that we're running consistently, and these are our educational webinars. I guess the deadline is even tighter for this one. If you're around after this call, our webinar on planning for walkability and public health is right after this at 2 p.m. But we have these happen monthly as well. They're a really great resource for you know, learning from experts in the field. In this case, today's webinar is with Dr. Larry Frank, who among, you know, his many merits is he's the creator of WalkScore. So he's been involved in this world for a while, mainly looking at the public health side of things. But Yeah, these have been a really awesome resource for several years now. We've been running them, I believe, since 2020. And I can share a link as well on our website. We have them all recorded and posted on our YouTube channel as well. And you can go back and view some previous examples, if you're looking for more information. Mainly stuff related to either our advocacy campaigns or advocating for walkability and walkable places in general. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit here, talk a little bit about our advocacy campaigns. Most of these are geared towards the national level, but come with really strong participation from state and local groups. And these three campaigns are Communities Over Highways campaign, our Week Without Driving campaign, and our Safer Vehicles for Pedestrians campaign. So I'll talk a little bit first about Communities Over Highways. I think last time I was here, so for those of you who were here last time, I think there were a few of you. This was, formerly known as our Reconnecting Communities campaign. We rebranded it this past year, really because we were thinking a little bit broader, beyond just reconnecting communities to really laying a stake in the ground on how we need to really overhaul our transportation system. So in 2024, this was February of 2024, we worked to build a Communities Over Highways coalition. This was, I think, 210 plus organizations from across the country that signed on to a national platform for transportation reform. And that platform essentially calls for the following, calling for governments, both state and the federal government, to adopt a moratorium on highway expansion projects, basically until we are meeting equity goals, until we're meeting climate goals, until we're meeting accessibility goals, and instead fund four key areas. Fund maintenance for roads, recognizing that we have such a large backlog of roads in poor conditions. Why are we spending a large percentage of the money available on building new roads? Focusing on funding public transportation instead, public transit, including the operations of public transit at the federal level. Almost all funding is dedicated for building new capital construction projects, not necessarily maintaining what we have. Those of us who ride the MBTA know that, unfortunately, all too well. Funding safer streets, really doubling down to make sure that there's larger pots of money available both federally and at the state level for making streets safer, particularly for people outside of cars. And reconnecting communities was part of this. So thinking about how do we repair the damage caused to communities that's happened over the years from highway building through those communities. We've worked with a few different members of Congress, including Senator Markey, on supporting some legislation around that platform. And we're always looking for advocates locally who are interested in talking to their members of Congress to support either the platform in the whole or even component parts of that platform. Because at the end of the day, folks in Congress, they'll listen to us at national nonprofits, and they may even like us and think we're smart, but they really just they care more about hearing from constituents than us. So there are a few different ways to get involved. If you're interested in our Communities Over Highways campaign, I'll share a link in the chat. At the end, we have a listserv that's called the Freeway Fighters Network. It consists of about, I think, 500 or so people right now, about 40 plus advocacy campaigns across the country that are, advocating for this Communities Over Highways platform. It's a place to share ideas, to get feedback from, others working on reconnecting communities or stopping highways expansions. It's a really great community to be a part of. I'll share the sign up link in the chat for those of you who are interested. And I can pause here as well if anyone has some questions.
Yeah, Ben, I actually I found the website through the America Walks website, and I noticed that one of the two projects listed in Massachusetts about grounding McGrath Highway just just in the last couple of days received money through the bipartisan infrastructure law for grounding McGrath. Somerville got over $40 million towards that project, which is pretty exciting. It's been a long time.
It was exciting to see that because it's been in the works for a decade plus
Yeah,
now.
at least.
Yeah.
At least. So
yeah, and part of our advocacy in this realm will be, for those of you who don't know, the federal Reconnecting Communities program was a $1 billion program in the bipartisan infrastructure law that's meant to do things like ground the McGrath Highway and turn it into a more pedestrian and bike friendly boulevard. That money now has all been spent. So part of our advocacy is getting even more money for projects like that in the future.
yeah, Nina just put in the chat. I remember when Livable Streets started the Grounding McGrath campaign moons ago.
Oh my God,
That's the official timeline. I think it was moons ago.
Yeah, I remember we had Stacy Thompson out to talk at one of our Communities Over Highways meeting, and she was like, "This is what winning looks like." And it's the plan that's set on the shelf for, at that point, it had been like 5 to 7 years. So in our other advocacy campaigns, and this one is something that we've a little newer, Week Without Driving. Once again, really great opportunity, even to participate at the individual level. So Week Without Driving, as the name kind of implies, is a challenge, but also a campaign that encourages people not to drive for 1 week and document their experience in doing so. The idea behind this campaign is really to build awareness for the barriers that exist in communities for getting around if you don't have a car, if you're not able to drive, either because you have a disability or you're not old enough to drive or you have aged out of driving, or if you are lower income and don't have a car. This campaign we started, it started in Washington State, I believe 3 years ago. The Disability Mobility Initiative started it there as a way to bring awareness to just how hostile a lot of places are to moving with a disability. We've worked with the Disability Mobility Initiative to take this national and have run the campaign for the last 2 years. 2025, this will be happening the week of September 29th through October 5th, and I'll share that link for the sign up there. But the idea behind it is really to use it as an organizing moment. we encourage folks to take the challenge individually, but we encourage, folks to get together to take the challenge collectively and really push particularly decision makers in your community to join on to the challenge. So this last year, we were really excited. We had, I think, close to 800 different elected officials across the country join in and try not to drive for a week and see what happens. And get them to talk about their experience and what they would do then, following the week without driving, to remove or reduce some of those barriers to walking or biking or taking transit. Yeah, like I said, I'll share the sign up link there. It's a really great and creative event. I think we had 500 organizations participate, and some of them, they probably none of those 500 did the exact same thing throughout the entire week. I know some of them did, like one group did a bingo card, to try and collect and see, all the different things that were barriers out in the world. Toledo, Ohio, for instance, the public transit agency there participated, and they wrapped their buses in Week Without Driving advertisements. So the range of things that you can do with this is really endless, and it can be self-serving in a really good way too. So my colleague Ruth runs this program. She hosts regular calls leading up to that end of September week. That is the Week Without Driving. So it has a ton of great resources to share about how you can host one of these events in your community. So I'd highly encourage folks to join in. We have now gotten all 50 states, but we'll double down on Massachusetts and see how many more folks here we can get on board. So I'll pause for questions on Week Without Driving as well.
I love the piece that you talked about there with getting elected officials involved. I think folks out in Worcester, I think, got one or two of the city councilors to participate and some of the city staff as well. So, and I think they found that effective. So,
yeah, and staff too are certainly, key targets for this. Whether that's staff at, MassDOT or your local DPW. But it's really, we collect at the end too. We try and collect as much as we can testimony from local electeds and agency staff that participate. And really trying to create that balloon effect, right? That people now can then, say 3 city councilors in Worcester participated, why aren't you in Framingham? Why don't you join in too? So building that critical mass has been a really key component of this. Last thing I'll talk about, we can just open the floor to questions and conversation, is our Safer Vehicles for Pedestrians campaign. This started several years ago, particularly with the passage of the bipartisan infrastructure law and its requirements that the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, which oversees vehicle design, make some updates as part of that law. And we've been concerned at the national level, with the growing trend in vehicle size with pickup trucks and SUVs and the dangers that poses for people outside of vehicles. We've been concerned with the increasing blind spots that come with these larger vehicles. And we've been, I guess, heartened, I think, to see some of the technology that's being implemented elsewhere in the world that makes vehicles safer. Things like automated emergency braking and intelligent speed assistance that basically controls and requires drivers to adhere to posted speed limits. So with this campaign, we're mobilizing folks across the country to oftentimes weigh in on reforms that the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration is looking to undertake. We've had some successes over the past years, particularly around the automatic emergency vehicle braking for pedestrians being incorporated into a required piece of technology for new vehicles. But we also recognize that there's a lot of work to do beyond the national level, work that can be done at the state and local level to make vehicles safer for pedestrians. So last year, for instance, we supported and worked with some allies in California around a bill that would require all new vehicles in California to have this intelligent speed assistance technology that requires cars to adhere to the speed limit. Made some great gains there. It passed the California Assembly, passed the California Senate. Unfortunately, Governor Newsom vetoed it. So we'll be returning to that work later on. But we also have what we call our Safer Fleets Challenge, which is part of this campaign that encourages local and state jurisdictions to retrofit their own fleets with this type of safety technology. We think it's perfectly rational, and I'm sure you all agree with me that government vehicles should adhere to government posted speed limits. We've had some working on a partnership now with the Vision Zero Network and Families for Safe Streets to expand that challenge and bring some more jurisdictions into the fold. And I know Somerville, I believe, has also actually started a pilot program testing intelligent speed assistance on their vehicles. So a great opportunity, if you're looking to do some advocacy with your city council or your fleet administrator to pitch adding some of this safety technology to their vehicles as a way to start building acceptance for this technology publicly speaking.
One thing on that, Ben, is I know that some folks have been having conversations with some members of the Senate to file a bill in here in Massachusetts on intelligent speed assist for like speed offenders, similar to like an ignition interlock device.
Yep.
So there's a potential that will be filed this coming session here in Massachusetts.
Yeah, and that's a great point. There's a lot of opportunities to trade notes with other places. Families for Safe Streets, for instance, in New York State has done a similar, supported similar legislation, and the District of Columbia, I think, has actually gone so far as to pass that legislation. So that'll be coming into effect soon. So I'll leave it there. My email's on the screen. It's ben@americawalks.org. If there's anything you want to reach out about, always happy to have a conversation. Let me share in the chat just some of the resources I mentioned, and I'm happy to answer any questions that folks may have, or just curious to hear as well, some of the stuff that you all are working on where you may see some overlap or opportunities, to collaborate and reach out to us. Here, I'll pop that in the chat there.
Yeah, Ben, Thanks for being here today. I really appreciated the work that America Walks has done over the last couple of years around some of that, uh, especially the vehicle design for safer pedestrians. I think being able to really rally people around the country to be saying this is ridiculous, it was pretty powerful. So I've really appreciated the leadership in that regard.
Yeah, and we've seen, for instance, there was this last in November into December. It's even posted another rulemaking around kind of specifically targeted towards pedestrian impact on vehicle hoods. Um, and we were a little late to getting our campaign off the ground, but thousands of people had already weighed in before on that, right, without any prompting. There's certainly a public demand across the country for this sort of thing, which on one side is really encouraging. On the flip side is really um,
Yes.
speaks to that need for keeping people safe.
Yeah, I agree with that. But like even just some of the visuals that you guys had like produced in advance of some of those comment periods were great. So, I definitely have echoed those. I dropped one in the chat of like, just showing like the vehicle bloat and how this is why, some of these rules are super important. Um, so those are both pickup trucks and they are very different in shape and size. So they're 10 years apart probably. So
Yeah, and we see, I think there's a general expectation. We shall see how this turns out. That with the Trump administration, NHTSA will not be doing as much of this work. I'm not wholly convinced that that's the case. We shall see. Um, but like I said, I think there's a lot of opportunities for states to start leading on this stuff. Um, California certainly tested those waters. And even with the addition of seatbelts actually to federal regulations, that requirement was first adopted by states before it even got to the federal government. So there's good precedent for states to lead the way on safer vehicles.
absolutely. And yeah, I think that has kind of been the way that we have to posture right now. Like it's states and then it's also local communities. Like, what can we do locally? And so I love that you guys have, the walk in college stuff, really encouraging people to take action locally. I'm going to drop a couple links in the chat now. We have a North Shore Walkout Academy training coming up on January 25th. Um, that's in partnership with the Beverly Bike and Pedestrian Group, which is one of the official municipal committees. Um, and they are planning on doing walk audits with city councilors throughout 2025 um, in each of the districts in Beverly, which is super exciting. So the training is actually wide into more than just Beverly. They have folks from Salem and Manchester by the Sea and Ipswich all signed up to also, learn what it means to take action locally. So we're pretty excited about that. And then,
Yeah.
yeah, the other two, the upcoming WalkMass network calls are February 19th. Talk about acting locally, learning how the tip process works, the transportation improvement process. Um, it's it's confusing. So the Boston MPO is going to be here in February to make it all less confusing and explain it all to all of us. And then in March, WalkMass staff will give a bit of a preview of our crash report that looks at fatal crashes from 2024 here in Massachusetts, because we will be releasing the report the week after. So as tradition dictates, we give a little preview to this group first to basically test out some messaging and get some good feedback before the final version is released.
Your North Shore walk audit reminds me. Uh, what was I going to say? You all should invite Seth Moulton's staff out too. Show
Oh,
show. I mean, he's actually he issued a message for Week Without Driving, so
okay.
they're kind of fellow travelers in a lot of
Yeah,
regards. But
I did track down the lieutenant governor yesterday at the announcement in Worcester. I went to the governor's announcement about filing legislation for transportation funding, and I caught the lieutenant governor because she's former mayor of Salem. So I made sure to let her know we were going to be doing this on the North Shore, and she thought it was great. And then she made a pitch that we should also be pushing Beverly to get involved in the regional bike share because she's like, this will make it even better for Salem, as more communities are part of the fold. So, which was great to hear that she's, boots on the ground and she understands the importance of safer streets for everybody.
no, totally.
Great. All right. Any more questions for Ben? Great. Well, thank you so much for being here, Ben. I'm going to stop the recording now.